Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome to the Dear Dad podcast. This is the place where we address dad dynamics and discuss personal experiences, stories, and poem submissions to help provide a platform for healing while simultaneously uplifting one another. Let's change the dad narrative all around. Let's go. Let's grow. Hello, you beautiful people. Thank you again for joining me at Dear Dad podcast. My name is Bjimson Darius, aka BJ, and today we have a wonderful guest. We've been in contact via Instagram, and he had a couple of sessions that I thought was actually really good. So typically, I usually have dad interviews or people are talking about their dad journeys and experiences about their dad. But I think this topic hit home for me, especially because it's something that I wouldn't say I'm dealing with, but it's something that I am living with, I would say. And I want to know more about it, to tell you the truth. I want to know more about it. And the reason why I wanted to bring him on, particularly about this topic, is because I don't think a lot of people in our community knows how to deal with it, the things that they need to watch out for, and the things that they need to know how to go about it, what to do about it, pretty much, right? But yes, before going into much details, let me introduce my guest, Farron Dozier. How do you doing, brother? How you doing?
Man, I'm blessed. How are you today?
I am doing good. I am so excited about this episode. This is more of an educational session, and I know you all have good insight about it. So the topic today, just to introduce, is about sickle cell and sickle cell traits, particularly sickle cell trait.
Yes.
The reason why I say I relate to it because I have a sickle cell trait, and I know some of my siblings does as well.
Oh.
And just following the trend of where it came from and who has it, who doesn't, and that whole hoopla of getting information. For me, this is more of an educational part. So I'm gonna give the mic to you, man. Give the floor to you. So introduce yourself and tell me, what is this all about?
Cool deal. Thank you, BJ. Again, Farron Dozier, retired Army Sergeant First Class, 24 years in the military, joined at 19. I was medically retired at 43, and it was all due to this conversation we're about to have with a diagnosis of sickle cell trait exertion with rhabdomyolysis. I had no idea I had sickle cell trait until I was at age 29. So I joined the military at 19. So my first physical into the military, nothing was said or discovered. My second physical, I was transferring to an infantry company to be a supply sergeant there, and I was required to have a physical. So I did that second physical with the Air Force Base, and they found my sickle cell trait, and literally called me in a panic, like, you need to come back to the clinic. And so I'm like, all right, like, what did y'all find in my blood work, right? So I go back and he's like, do you know you have sickle cell trait? I says, no. He says, okay, well, we just want to let you know that, you have the trait. And I'm like, okay, hold on. I have a cousin with sickle cell disease. Is it the disease? He says, no, it's not sickle cell disease. You're a trait carrier. You shouldn't have any problems. Just make sure you don't mate with another person, because you could have a baby with sickle cell disease and all that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I'm not having kids no more. I already have my 3 daughters. So I'm like, I'm cool. All right. So in one ear, out the other, 29 years old, pack up my family, and we moved out of state. But I can tell you, my mom would say 1972. I remember 75 because I was 5 years old, and my left arm ached like crazy. It would wake me up out of my sleep. I would cry. My grandmother would hold me over the sink and run warm water over my arm. Only thing would soothe that pain. Take me to the doctor. 1975, the doctor says, oh, it's growing pains. Don't worry about it. He's 5. He's growing. Don't worry. He's growing pains. Well, I'm 51 years old today, and that pain has not gone away.
Wow.
And so after, again, discovering this community of people that I'm connected to, I found many people with sickle cell trait have been suffering, sometimes in silence, with trait crisis.
Right.
So understanding that now, and then during my military career, the episode, I'll give you the short version. I was at my 17th year, and I was at my Master Sergeant Academy. I was at E7, working on my way to get to the E8 list to get promoted in the future. And so I was at the schoolhouse that morning. We take this exercise test twice a year, and I was up, got up and did the push-ups and sit-ups, and then I was out doing the 2-mile run.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on my last lap, and I could hear the instructor 15:45, 15:46, and I'm like, oh shoot, I'm doing pretty good. I'm 36 years old. I have 17:21 to pass the test, and I'm coming around, and I hear 15s, right? So I'm like, cool. So my brain, we're trained to sprint that last lap to get your best time.
Yeah.
So my brain kicks in. Okay, let me get this, let me get my best time. So I kick in that gear and I take off to sprint. And I do remember like this electrical charge, like vibrate through my whole body, like a sensation. And I was like, okay, like I didn't think nothing of it. Again, I'm sprinting, cross the finish line, 16 minutes, put my hands over my head, get air in my lungs, all the stuff we're trained to do.
Right.
And all of a sudden, my peripheral got dark. And I'm like, man, I don't feel well. And then I kneeled down, lay back on the ground because everything started spinning. And I felt nauseated and just out of it. So I closed my eyes real tight, opened them up, and everything was spinning like 1,000,000 miles an hour is the best way I could describe it to you.
Wow.
So I kept them closed real tight. Medics came and got me, rushed me to the hospital, and doctor pulls me in, puts an IV in my arm, comes back in and says, hey, you ever had kidney problems? I said, nope. He says, oh, well, you do now. And then he walks out. And I'm like, what in the heck? And my instructor is standing next to me. And I'm like, man, what's going on? And I'm like, so he comes back in and says, you know what? Freak accident. It's probably dehydration, heat stroke. I'm going to give you another IV. Go back to the barracks. Take the day off. You should be fine. So the schoolhouse allowed me to take the rest of the day off. I'll go back to the barracks. I go to sleep. I wake up somewhere, maybe like 2 o'clock or so, and I was worse. Everything was spinning. I tried to drink water, Gatorade, a banana, eat a banana, like nothing stayed down. I threw everything up, almost crapped on myself, like I was bad. So I make my way back to the bunk. I go back to sleep. My classmates come in at 4:30 because I know that's what time school is out, and they rush me back to the hospital. So the night doctor pulls me in, he does his test, and he sees that my creatinine kinase levels, CK levels, are 12,000. Now at age 36, they were supposed to be around 150. So with the CK levels with being that high, there's a condition, a skeletal muscular condition called rhabdomyolysis.
Okay.
And so rhabdo is where the muscles, the myoglobin in the muscles start to break down.
Yes.
And they get into the bloodstream. And then once they hit the bloodstream, those toxins become the myoglobin plus the negative toxins in the muscles hit the kidneys, and then the kidneys start to fail because of the toxins. So you have negative potassium, you have all these different chemicals, toxins in the blood, and that's what was happening. So the morning doctor did see my renal failure starting, but I guess he didn't recognize it or know. And so by the time I got back that night, my kidneys were at 50% each.
Wow.
So I was literally dying on the inside and had no idea what was going on. So the doctor put me on IVs, and I ended up being in the hospital for 4 days on IVs, flushing my kidneys to get those CK levels numbers down. I think when I left the hospital, they were like about 500 and something. And the secondary complications I was left with from the rhabdo was the vertigo. My body overheated. So with the overheating, I have double vision. With the skeletal muscular issues, I ended up with having muscle damage, joint damage, muscle fatigue. And I was trying to figure out what was happening when I got back home. So I went to my regular doctor, And so I spent like 2.5 years with my regular doctor and a neurologist trying to figure out like, okay, what happened? So about 2.5 years into it, I would get on the treadmill and it felt like I've just been off a roller coaster ride. Like I was just sick.
Right.
And so we agreed, you know what, you can't run anymore. So I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. I can do the bicycle. Like the military, we have alternate events. So I could do the walk or the bicycle. The myth is real. I swim like a Chevy truck, like a rock. So I don't swim. So I was like, I'll do an alternate event. And when I turned that paperwork into the military, they read those documents and they flagged me and said, oh no, you can't do anything until we figure out what happened to you. And I'm like, look, that's like 3 years ago almost. Like, I'm good. Just let me do a different event and I could pass. So they said no, and they stopped me from exercising completely. So for those 2.5 years, I was at least doing something, having my body in motion and, doing what I could. But at that moment, they canceled everything and I couldn't no longer exercise, couldn't carry a weapon. I couldn't do anything until they started their process. Shortly after that, my body just like, that was September. So like November, my body just started hurting. My arms, my elbows, my wrists, my right knee, my left knee, my lower back, my shoulders, my feet. Next thing I know, January 1st, my whole body was inflamed. I could barely walk. And so I go to the doctors on the base and the nurse, I went the whole month of January, every 2 days. And they was like, we don't know what to do. So she said, go to UCLA Medical Center after hours when we close, and you should be able to be seen by a specialist. So I did that and I checked in UCLA. They looked at my heart and my heart was doing some crazy stuff. So they rushed me in. Dr. Taylor came in and she put a needle in my knee and pulled out fluid and says, oh, you have arthritis. I'm like, what? So I was diagnosed with that episode. My whole body was inflamed and she labeled it arthritis. So now I'm dealing with more physical pain. And of course, I made it mean my life was over. So my mental state is now being impaired.
Right.
And I happened to be on the base leaving a mental health appointment one day, and the officer that I served with during the war, we were stationed together, 405. I passed him on the base. Haven't seen him in 5 years. And he's like, how you been? And I'm like, man, you don't want to know. He's like, nah, tell me. I'm like, man, my muscles, I can't barely walk. I'm having these issues, my mental health, I'm in these appointments now. And he's like, you know what? Something like that happened to me where my muscles locked up, but I have sickle cell trait. So I have to drink extra water, take these vitamins. And I'm standing there like, why does that sound familiar?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, and this is 2010. And I remember my physical from 99.
Right.
So I go in the clinic and I say, hey, can I get a copy of my last physical? And so they print it off. I look at it and sure enough, positive sickle cell trait. So I take that to my rheumatologist and I say, look, I need you to check this out. This is what I found. So she retested my blood again. Sure enough, positive sickle cell trait. She also was able to tell me that 40% of my red blood cells were the S gene. So with sickle cell trait, we're AS. We have one normal and we have one mutating, which is the S.
Right.
So 40% of those are traits. So when she said that, and then the research that I found, looking up sickle cell trait exertion with rhabdo, I had experienced every symptom except for the heart attack, which most people have died from. And so that was the lead into what happened to me. And they were able to put that all together. And then that just verified my medical retirement. And they started that process. And it took them 3 years before they was able to complete that process, because I did appeal it because I wasn't trying to get out. So with all my appeals, it took almost 3 years. And so I was medically retired. The beauty of it, and this is where I know, God's hands was in this because when I went to one of my mental health appointments, my normal guy wasn't there, but there was a stand-in, and Ashley Benjamin was the guy, and he was like, "What are you gonna do when you retire?" I says, "Man, I don't know. Like, I have an idea for a sports brand called What's the Count? Maybe I'll just sell some hats and t-shirts and sit on the dock of the bay and watch the tides roll away and whistle."
That's my favorite
Right?
song.
Hey, that was my retirement song, right? So I was like, I'm just probably gonna like, I don't know, man. I guess probably gonna do something like that. So he's like, let me show you something. So he opened up this book that he written, a student athlete book, and it had a paragraph on sickle cell trait in college athletes.
Mm.
And I'm reading that and I'm crying. And I said, you know what happened to me? He's like, oh yeah, it happens a lot. And sometimes it gets misdiagnosed because people that have the heart attacks, they label it as a heart attack. So it doesn't get even written up correctly in the deaths. And so he's like, well, you could become an advocate. I'm like, so what's that? He says, you could actually share your story
Right.
and educate people and bring awareness and use your sports brand and sell your hats and t-shirts at events. And that could raise money for you to travel.
Wow.
And I was like, what? So it was like the cartoon character with the light bulb on top of the head.
Right.
I was like, you're kidding me. And when I went home, those nights that I spent up wanting to commit suicide and jump off the roof and drive my car off the freeway, I started doing more research about my gene. And I found my voice. I found this community of, and I'll share it with you on the presentation that I'm going to go through. 300 million people plus have sickle cell trait globally. And I had no idea that this was an issue. And so I accepted that challenge and I became an advocate. And so for the last 10 years, almost 11, I've been sharing my story, created an organization to help get this message out. I've traveled through colleges, HBCUs, spoken at Bluebird Bio with some scientists, 200 scientists. I traveled to military bases, been to Germany. God has blessed me to be able to get this message out. And so I'm very grateful that reaching out to you to talk about being a father, you just never know who you meet, right? You just never know. And so if you don't mind, I can start the slides real quick and show you some basic facts about sickle cell trait.
So one of the question is for me, or comments, like, was your case in a severe case? Because I'm trying to figure out exactly for me, and I'm relating to my siblings as well. Okay. But for those that do have the trait, not so much the disease itself, like what are some things that you should need to look out for having the trait? Because I know the, again, fundamental basics, and the stuff that I learned is maybe when I'm watching television, it's like you can't do this, you can't do that. And one thing I know for sure was just like elevation is not really good. It's just like depths. So I can't hike up a high elevation because I know the air is thin. It's not good for my lungs.
Yes.
Others is just like scuba diving. I can't deep sea scuba dive because again of the pressure. So those are again for me, those are like the typical stuff that I've heard about, but nothing concrete of what you're going through. I don't know. Again, I don't know if your case was an extreme case or not, but I've never heard it to that degree. I've heard surface level of it.
Yes.
I've heard what you're going through is what those that have the sickle cell go through, because I know I have a friend of mine that does have that, and he can't he doesn't function well in cold weathers. That's another thing too. If you have the full disease, so he has to be very careful about where he resides, as far as where him and his wife resides. So those are the surface that I know about it. But the reason why I'm asking this particular question is because I don't know if there's some symptoms that I'm going through right now that's because of the trait. I don't know if because of maybe a certain pain or inflammation or some kind of small exertion or small outbreak that I would have that may cause that. I don't know. And how do I know I'm asking a lot of questions at once, but how do I explore those things and know that this is the cause of it and not something else?
Definitely. Yeah. So pretty much the symptoms that a person with sickle cell disease experiences, we may experience mild forms of those.
Right.
A friend that I advocate with, she says that we're like snowflakes. Everybody's different. So what my triggers could cause my exertion issues could be different from yours. There are people who do the high elevations and the scuba diving, and their spleen bursts and have issues, because that is also a sign of sickle cell trait issues, is the spleen infarction. So it depends on, you would have to definitely go back and get retested again. I don't know if you know what your percentages are, but if you don't know your percentages, I would recommend you go back and do a hemoglobin electrophoresis test. I have a slide for that, and find out what your numbers are, because we're finding out as well that some people with sickle cell trait also have other inherited red blood cell conditions like alpha thalassemia or beta thalassemia, and people have been misdiagnosed, and their pain or their issues are connected to another level of sickle cell trait.
Right.
I've met people who have G6PD, a glucose deficiency, called G6PD. And so we inherit 46 chromosomes for our parents, 23 from each. So sometimes it could be other DNA issues as well. But as a trait advocate, we have people make sure you go rule out your trait first to make sure that that's not the trigger, or the other issues could be causing the secondary health issues.
Right.
But the elevation, you're true about that. Places like Denver, Colorado, Cheyenne, Wyoming. I advocate with the guy who was in the Air Force, who was same thing, doing the exercise test, had a cold, so he knew he was sick, had a mild cold, but did the test before with the cold and never had a problem, and was out there in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and they do like a mile and a half. He collapsed. His was worse than mine because his CK levels were in the hundreds of thousands. He had to learn how to walk again.
Wow.
He was on dialysis because they didn't know it was trait related because of the symptoms. So we're educating the medical community, because a lot of times they overlook what's the trigger of that condition. So anybody can experience rhabdomyolysis, anybody can, but we're more susceptible because when I overexerted myself, it caused my red blood cell to mutate like a person with sickle cell disease. Wow. So that red blood cell mutated. That means there was 40% less oxygen flowing through my body, which caused the muscles to start to break down, because now there's no oxygen getting getting to the muscles, and then that causes the rhabdo. So it's all like connected.
Wow.
And the scuba diving, yes, scuba diving is a no-go for a sickle cell trait. They definitely do not recommend that. Even now, when I fly, I have to make sure that I hydrate, days before. On the plane, I have to turn the air on. I used to turn the air off because I didn't like the air on the plane. And now I have to turn it on and literally have it in my face. I have to get up and walk around on the plane. And if not, I end up being sick on my trip because of I was getting nauseous on the decompression on the descent.
I see. Okay.
And so I would end up being sick for 3 days. And if I'm on vacation for 5 days, I'm sick 3 of them.
Oh, that sucks.
So yeah, exactly. So I had to figure out what that was. And so I had to start, making sure I had enough water before, during, and after those flights. And what's crazy is there's a eustachian tube that runs from your nose through your ear, the canal. And I don't know if they can't tell me if it's muscle related, but it is a muscle. So that my muscle in that canal is weak now. And so my ear is muffled. So I jumped on a plane to go to Georgia to see my family. And I thought my head was going to explode because it was a piercing in my ear. And I came back home. I made it back home from that trip, and I went to the VA, and they said, oh yeah, your muscle in your eustachian tube is weak and there's nothing we can do. So now when I fly, I have to put cotton or or earplugs in my ear and pray that I don't have that feeling in my head. So it has been really challenging
Wow.
with the secondary complications of this sickle cell trait exertion. And then you talk about, and I don't have slides for this, but the eyes. So there's if you overexert yourself, it's possible you can have a crisis in your eyes. You can also we're also susceptible of blood clots as well. And there is a rare kidney cancer that's connected to sickle cell traits. And we just did a conference last Thursday, and we covered that in the conference. And they're starting to discover that with athletes and people who exercise, sometimes those little canals in the kidneys, because of the exertion and the high levels of protein, those little things break off and die, and that causes the cancer. It can cause a kidney cancer.
So it's not just because when you were telling me your story, so it's not just physical exertion. It can pretty much be like I said, elevations, or it can
Yes.
depth, or it can just be, couldn't it just be triggered by just like maybe something you eat, or I'm not sure. I'm only asking questions because I want to just rule out certain things I'm experiencing.
Dehydration. So you're supposed to drink half your body weight in ounces of water every day. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you're supposed to drink 50 ounces of water every day. And most of the time when we do those conferences and speaking engagements, most people raise their hand that they don't drink that much water naturally. Right. And so as a trait carrier, that is like our saving grace. And we should probably drink more than that, because of the way our red blood cells live. They only live about 20 to 100 days, when your normal red blood cells live 120 days. So those red blood cells are cycling through. Plus, when they die off, they can also get lodged in the spleen and in the liver. So when I used to go to the doctor, I had this one doctor at Loma Linda Hospital. I would go to her if I had like an allergy issue or whatever, and she would do blood work, and she would be like, "Your bilirubin count is high. Do you have liver disease?" I was like, "Hey, I don't have no liver disease. What are you talking about?" She would make me fast and come back, and then my numbers would be down, but they would still be slightly high. Wow. Well, I wasn't doing this work back then in the 90s, but I learned that those numbers are high because those red blood cells, sometimes they die off and they get stuck in the liver, and it causes the bilirubin counts to be high.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And recently, there's a conversation now that diabetes, we can test a false positive for diabetes as well, being sickle cell trait carriers.
Wow. Okay.
So those are like the things that we're starting to discover as I've been advocating and being partnered with other organizations who take on those other conversations. And my board member, Dr. Maisha, she has sickle cell trait herself. She's got about 6 kids. I believe 4 out of the 6 have the trait. And so she is my backup. So she gives you the more of the medical terminology, and I deliver the basic facts. So she will be able to tell you even more in detail of the severity in which her conversation now with us is sickle cell trait has been labeled benign, but is it a disease on a spectrum?
Right.
And so we're out to change this conversation, because we've gotten overlooked with our health, because the main focus has been sickle cell disease, which we understand. However, you got 300 million people who are experiencing some type of crisis, but we've been discounted because, well, you don't have the disease, so you shouldn't be having these problems.
Right.
But that's clear, and I'm going to show you clearly not the case, because they've known about it and it just hasn't been addressed or delivered. So I believe God has allowed me to experience what I did through the military, and I'm a messenger. I have accepted the challenge to deliver these messages about sickle cell trait.
Wow, wow. All right, so I'm gonna let you get to the slide.
Okay,
So just a heads up, this is more gonna be audio. I'm gonna use the video for maybe another time frame.
that's fine.
So while you go into the slide, just describe exactly what you see and what you're doing, and
Okay,
the details, so I can have that on the podcast.
okay,
And I guess I'll save my questions for later on because I knew I have a little bit more questions. So, but I'll let you go to the slide and I could possibly answer some of my questions as well.
okay, no problem.
All right.
All right, so my campaign conversation is what's so with sickle cell trait, SCT, and the clinical term is HBAS, which is hemoglobin AS. And my what's so is with the Z because my organization is What's the Count on Sickle Cell Trait, WHATZ
Right.
DACOUNT. I gave it some flavor. All right, so this is my disclosure. I don't have any financial relationships with this guy here. We're just here sharing my information and my story about sickle cell trait. This is my organization, What's the Count on Sickle Cell Trait, my mission statement, a little bit of my story in the middle, and then on the front is the logo, and that's me and my daughter. I've been doing radio, podcasting, blog talk since 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did blog talk first in 2010, and then I went to internet, TV, and radio in 2013. And then now I'm on AM, FM, and podcasting platforms as well now. So I remember when this was that was kind of the start
Right.
of the podcasting world. This is the inside of the brochure. Basically, this information is from the CDC, the SCDAA, and ASH. They got together and created a sickle cell trait toolkit, and that is also on my website. But if you go to the CDC and type in sickle cell trait, they will give you a list of fact sheets about the different complications of sickle cell trait.
Right.
And that came out about maybe 2012 or 13.
Well, that's
somewhere
recent.
around there. Yeah. So we want to say that we helped them enforce that because it became such a heavy topic in the military and in the college that it's mandatory for all student athletes to have a sickle cell trait test.
All right. Okay.
And doesn't matter what your nationality is, what your background, or what sport. They're required to have a trait test because athletes were dying in these college, programs, football, basketball, track and field. And so they put the liability back on the families so they don't have to pay get sued, which was all that was a buffer.
Right.
So that's the fact sheet. So I share this when I go out for people who ask for more information. So this slide is what is hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is found in all red blood cells and carries oxygen from the lungs to tissues and organs throughout the body. Normal red blood cells are soft, smooth, round, and can move easily through the body. However, with sickle cell disease, we know that they become hard and stiff and rigid and no oxygen throughout the body. So a person with sickle cell disease at any given time could have 50, 60, 70% of the red blood cells mutating, just depending on what's going on with them, right? If they're in a crisis.
Right.
So it does have a purpose. Sickle cell trait was discovered to combat malaria.
Yep.
So malaria, if you're not familiar with it, it is parasites of malaria that would attack the red blood cells, which would then travel throughout the bloodstream, parts of the body, and people would die. And so what they're saying is that 5,000 plus years ago, that people who were in these parts of the country or the region where malaria was present, how they started to survive was the body created this defective gene, and that's how they were able to survive malaria. And one of this statement here, I could just do this. I could say this statement for the next 20 years and maybe move the needle. People think that sickle cell trait is a Black gene or a Black disease. It is not a Black disease or a Black gene. So with that, if you look at the map, you could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, European, Asian, Hispanic. It is no longer a color. You have to know where your ancestors are from, and you have to have the test done. So we are number one. However, we are not the only ones that can have sickle cell trait or have sickle cell disease. But most people think it's a black gene.
Hmm.
And how it was discovered and by who? So it's only been 1910 in Western medicine. So this year you're talking about 111 years that they've only been studying sickle cell trait. And it wasn't found in Africa. It was found in the United States, in Chicago. Again, it's been around more than 5,000 plus years. They say even King Tut was known to have sickle cell. They found mutated genes in his tissues.
Wow.
Walter Clements Noel was from Grenada, had sickle cell disease, went to the doctor. Dr. James Herrick was the one doing the research, was complaining about episodes, and they discovered that it was sickle cell disease. So how is sickle cell trait inherited? If both parents have sickle cell trait, there is a 50% chance that the child will have sickle cell trait. And if both parents have sickle cell trait, there's a 25% chance that the child will have sickle cell disease. And also, if both parents have sickle cell trait, there's a 25% chance that that child will be born with normal hemoglobin, AA. If one person has sickle cell trait, there's a 50% chance that that child will have sickle cell trait. So I have 3 daughters. My oldest 2 do not have the trait. My youngest daughter, Deja, that you saw in the brochure, she has sickle cell trait as well. Now, what's oddly is she was born in 98. I found mine in 99, and we never put 2 and 2 together.
Wow.
So what we talk about in that aspect is when parents have children, they are being tested now with newborn screening. So you have to know what year your hospital started testing or your state started testing. They do newborn screening. They send a letter to the parents, and it's left up to the parents to call in to get more information or to get the genetic counseling. And like I did, I grabbed that letter, I read it, said, oh, and I put it in some drawer somewhere and never looked at it again.
Typical.
Typical,
That's all of
right?
us, right?
Right. So we are advocating to improve the genetic counseling when it comes to sickle cell trait so that the parents are aware early on with the risk factors and to inform that child as they get older.
Now, before you move on, I just want to ask a question real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
You say your youngest daughter has a trait as well. When she found out that she did have it, what was her reaction and how did you coach her through it?
So hers was similar to mine. When I got to Michigan, she was 2 years old and she would come out of her room crying. My hands, my feet, my feet. She's 2. Yeah, she's growing pains. Her feet's probably growing. Don't worry about it. Right? Same thing. Not until I had my episode and discovered myself that I looked back at her and we talked, and I wondered why I would call her lazy because she would come home from school and go straight to sleep and take a nap.
Wow.
Or she would complain about her hands or her feet or her shins pain. Wow. And not until I became an advocate did we discover that, oh yeah, you do have that. And oh, by the way, you're having symptoms. And then that became our journey. So she advocates with me now and she tells her story as well.
Wow.
But so when she's stressed, because stress can trigger it as well.
Okay.
So when she's stressed usually or dehydrated, she has the hands, feet, shin pains.
What kind of treatments or medication does help?
For sickle cell trait patients, they don't remember it's not considered any issue. So you just take, aspirin, you take Tylenol. Now we're understanding that a person with sickle cell trait might need Motrin.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Or morphine. Morphine opens up the vessels. That's why sickle cell disease patients ask for morphine, because it opens up the blood vessels so that the blood can flow through, and IV hydration. So there's things that we're out to alter, because again, I've gone to the doctor and was like, hey, look, can you give me an IV? I think I'm dehydrated. Oh no, you go home and drink water. I'm like, can you give me no, it's too evasive. So I've been rejected, just trying to get an IV just to make sure. I'm like, can you just replenish me? So at least I know I'm hydrated? Like, no, right. Like, no, go home and drink water.
Wow.
If you do it in a marathon, I would give it to you, but you're not. So you got to go consume your water. Things like that. Pain. My arm pain still happens. I run water over it still, heating pad. I rub it. I mean, we don't really have a protocol for how we get treated for our pain.
Right. Okay.
And then that's what we're out to shift in that conversation as well. This slide here is sickle cell trait as a global. As I mentioned earlier, 300 million people plus globally. Nigeria is known to be the largest population with 30 million. You have India with 20 million, Congo with 16 million, Brazil with 9 million, Tanzania with 6 million, Kenya with 5 million, Ghana with 4, Saudi Arabia with 4, and United States, we're somewhere between 2.5 to 3 to 4 million people with sickle cell trait in the United States, and million that don't know. So these numbers are old numbers, put it to you that way. They have not been updated. And the major impact on sickle cell trait on public health, it is a public health issue. And we describe it and we talk about it as such. And military and sports is present a lot, again, with the exertion. And it is a real factor. This slide is red blood cells. My campaign is what's in your genes. So I have a normal red blood cell AA. That's me in the middle, and yourself, like me, AS in the middle, and then sickle cell disease SS. And again, those red blood cells only live about 20 to 100 days, and they become sticky, inflexible, and they clog the blood vessels, depriving oxygen to parts of the body. So wherever blood flows, you can have a crisis.
Right.
Organs, brain, eyes, personal, private parts, you name it. Wherever blood flows, you can experience pain.
Okay.
And so I share this, what's in your genes. A lot of people don't understand that it's inherited. So just like your complexion, just like your hair texture, your facial features, your eye colors, as parents, we don't get to pick none of that. We don't get to pick the color that we wish we could, but we don't get to pick none of those. And that's how that gene is inherited. We don't get to pick. So you might hear people say, oh, sickle cell trait, it skips generations. It does not skip generations. With each pregnancy, those odds start over every pregnancy. Mm-hmm. So I've met people who have 3 children. The first child had normal AA. The second child had AS, and the third child had sickle cell anemia, and they were surprised.
It's all random.
Yes, it's like going to Vegas and putting everything on black every time.
Wow.
With each pregnancy, those odds start over. So it does not skip generation. The chosen ones, or whatever you believe in, we're all born for a reason. So those that were born with it, there's a reason, there's a purpose. So here's where you're asking about the risk factors. And these are the things that I had no idea existed. Again, they told me just make sure you don't mate. And I was done mating, having kids. So I was done. I'm cool on that one. I'm blank man. So the risk factor, and this is from the CDC. This is in the medical books. This stuff has been written. And what I'm learning as an advocate is how we talk about it. The language is going to be very important. It's the language. And I'm going to show you the key word in this statement that doesn't make this make sense. It says most people with sickle cell trait do not have any symptoms of sickle cell disease, comma, although, and that's the word right there. Mm-hmm. Although in rare cases, people with sickle cell trait might experience complications of sickle cell disease, such as. Now, how does that even make sense? It doesn't even go together. But the key word in that statement is the although.
Right.
Right? So pain crisis in their extreme form and in rare cases. Now we got to figure out, what do you consider rare? So again, the language is very important as we've been moving forward and sharing these conversations with people because of how it's been written. And as you mentioned, increased pressure in the atmosphere and also in scuba diving. Low oxygen levels in air, which can be experienced, for example, mountain climbing, exercising extremely hard in the military boot camp, and training for athletic competitions. And that's where we see it a lot with military and sports. How mine showed up, dehydration. These are the complications. Again, high altitudes, flying, mountain climbing. Again, cities with high altitudes like Denver, Colorado, Aspen, those kind of places that people have had issues with their trait. And again, more research is needed to find out why some people with sickle cell trait have complications and others don't. They have not figured out why some do and some don't. So we are forcing these conversations to do more studies as well. With the risk factors and sickle cell trait exertion for trait and athletes, some people with sickle cell trait have been shown to be more likely than others, without the trait to have experience of heat stroke, muscle breakdown. That's what I had, the rhabdo. So the muscle breakdown, the heat stroke, doing the high intense exercises. One of the organizations I work with, the As One Foundation, the two twin brothers found out their trait in college. Devon they were doing the mat drills in opposite sides of the gym at Florida State. And long story short, his brother died from sickle cell trait exertion during the preseason practice.
Wow.
And so he has a foundation honoring his brother. He ended up making it to the NFL, played for a couple of teams, retired with the Ravens as a wide receiver, and has some episodes as well, even after his retirement. So we all teamed up together. So we advocate and share our story. He talks about his twin brother and how he passed away.
Wow.
Studies have shown, the problems reducing, avoiding dehydration and getting too hot. I remember, when I collapsed, it was like 50 something degrees, like 6:30 in the morning. So I did have on my full PT gear, the shorts, the t-shirt, and the pants and the jacket because it was cold. So, could that have been a factor as well because of all the stuff that I had on and my body temperature? Again, I've done that test 2 times a year for 17 years and never had an episode like that before.
Right.
So that perfect morning, it was my time. And it doesn't mean that you're less of an athlete. You just might have to set your own pace and build up your intensity slow. And for athletes and military, as I talk about, they may have to rest in between repetitive sets. So you might not be able to do 10 sprints at one time. You might have to do 7 and take a break and do the other 3. It doesn't make you less of an athlete or a soldier, but you have to give your body a chance to recover.
Right.
Times. And so CrossFit is another exercise that is not, popular for a trait carrier because in CrossFit, you go through extreme intense exercises consistently. Like you don't stop in between.
Right.
And so those type of exercises may not be something that you want to start out with. You might want to work your way to. Drink plenty of water before, during, after training and conditioning activities. Keep your body temperature cool when exercising in hot and humid temperatures. And again, if you experience any of those symptoms, you might not need a bottle of water. You might need some medical attention because if the rhabdo has started, that's where the life-threatening symptoms can start to happen. The only way to find out if you have sickle cell trait is to get tested. And we have people who know their trait carriers. You must have your partners tested. And as a sickle cell trait advocate, we're responsible for the other red blood cell conditions. So sickle cell trait is just one. There's supposedly 400 plus different types of red blood cell conditions. So you have sickle cell trait, you have hemoglobin C trait, you have thalassemia trait, you have D trait, you have OA-RAB, you have Monroe. So if you're a trait carrier, a S trait carrier, and you ask your mate, oh, you have sickle cell trait? And he or she says no, and then you have a baby, and that baby is born with sickle cell SC disease, that means that your partner has the C trait, and your baby now has a form of sickle cell disease or thalassemia. So we make sure that we talk about making sure if you're a trait carrier, that your partner is tested with this hemoglobin electrophoresis test. And pretty much what they do is they draw the blood, they shock it, and how those proteins mutate is how they've determined what type of inherited genes that you carry. And the takeaways that I offer the community who I do this presentation is you have to know your status, your trait status, the sickle cell trait, thalassemia, hemoglobin C, hemoglobin D, E. You got to know those things. Asthma. Sometimes sickle cell trait can trigger cases of asthma and cardiac arrest. So that's why I said some people have died from cardiac arrest exercising, but they label it as such, but they don't label it as being triggered by sickle cell trait. Acute illness, again, immune system. I've met a few people who have had trait crisis and they were sick. They had a cold, they had the flu, they had taken some medications, and I know statin drugs like cholesterol medication is definitely not good to be exercising with sickle cell trait, especially if you're not hydrated, because the statin drug can also trigger the rhabdomyolysis by itself. You talk about lack of sleep, fatigue. Most people, when I share how we get started in our conversations, they'll say, well, I've never had any pain. I say, how about, are you tired? Oh yeah, I'm always tired. Yeah, fatigue. so the number one symptom is fatigue. Like I said, I did it to my daughter. Like, are you lazy? What's wrong with you? Why are you always sleeping? Well, guess what? Fatigue. I've met people. This lady dragged her son to me. You need to hear his story. Come here. Tell my son what you just said. Fatigue. Oh yes, I'm always tired. Yeah, that's something you need to take a look at.
Wow, that's so interesting. That's for me. That's 100% me right there. Like fatigue.
Yeah. Fatigue. Yeah.
Fatigue is just for me. I mean, it was more when I was younger, I would say, than I am right now, only because I'm not moving around as much.
Mm-hmm.
But it came to a point that, and my sister-in-law would probably laugh at this. She said when she was dating my brother in the beginning of the dating phase, she said she barely knew who I was because every time she came over, I was taking a nap. I was taking a nap.
Wow.
Predominantly, I would work, and I would work either overnight or early mornings.
Yes.
And I would be on my feet majority of the time. So I would be tired. By the time I come home, I would take a nap, and I would love to take naps. Even now, people were just like, I remember you're like a person that loved taking naps. And for me, it was just because I just felt tired. It was just easy for me to take a nap and just like,
you sleep it off.
You generate my energy. And, sometimes I don't even have to sleep. I just have to just like rest my body.
Yes.
And then I get back into like, into my patterns. But just saying that makes a whole lot more sense to me. And that's the reason why I want to have this, so I can know what are the stuff that I'm experiencing, so I can know this is why it's happening. That's causing.
Definitely could be
fatigue. Definitely for me.
Yeah, fatigue, dehydration, and muscle weakness. Again, nutrition, diet is important. Water is our best friend. Alkaline water. I was able to sit down and do an interview with Dr. Sabi in 2013, and I asked him questions about sickle cell, and he went in. And alkaline water, having a balanced pH body with alkaline is very important as well. So you want to balance with regular water, alkaline water, not too much Gatorade because of the sugars, but Gatorade is also good for the electrolytes.
Right.
But water and alkaline water, definitely important. And again, the medications, the side effects of the statin drugs, the kidney issues, those are the CK levels. Sometimes when you feel that muscle weakness, you want to get those numbers checked as well, because those are signs. And then the medical exam, just to confirm your health status, especially if you have a student athlete, or people don't go to the doctor before they go to the gym. Like they just wake up, I'm gonna go start working out. Like they don't detox, they don't go get a physical, they just start working out. And then if you don't know, your body or what state your body's in, you could cause more damage.
I see.
And so that is very important to, have a exam. And that's it. At this point, there would be questions. And my website is wdconsct.org. I have all the information there, from the basic facts and the fact sheets and videos and interviews of people that I've talk to experts, doctors, Dr. Sabi's videos there, but really just the facts about sickle cell trait and the risk factors.
Right.
I focus on the risk factors because, again, most people don't think that sickle cell trait can have complications, that is benign. Yet I've just showed you the basics of the complications that are possible. And it sounds like sickle cell disease if you really look at the symptoms.
Right. Right. Right.
They're not far off from sickle cell disease. So
Wow. Yeah, man. Thank you so much. So, so what would you say to those that doesn't know that they have the trait? They don't even know. I mean, for those that have the sickle cell disease, it's easier for you to figure it out. But those that don't even know they have the trait, how to go about doing that, or better yet, for those that do have the trait, how do you pay attention to those particular signs that you know that might be related to sickle cell trait? Because for me, it could just be something that I experience maybe once a month, or I could experience it like every 2 months or so. But how do you track those things if it's sometimes random, or is this you don't know that that's the reason for it?
yeah, I mean, the biggest thing when I'm out talking is you got to pay attention to your body. Your body will tell you what's going on. Again, muscle cramps. A lot of people think, well, I just exercised too hard, or I just did this, or I'm an athlete, so I'm supposed to have these pains and cramps. That's not the case. So if you know you're a sickle cell trait carrier, I would say go back and do another hemoglobin electrophoresis test, and then make sure that you ask to find out about any other red blood cells. So there's, like I said, alpha thalassemia. As I've been doing this work, it shows up as A2. So when you do your blood work, and they also do a complete blood count. So you'll see your hemoglobins and you'll see your A's. And if you see A2, and you got to know what that number is, that A2 could be high or that A2 could be low. If that A2 is high, that means that you're dealing with another red blood cell conditions because the body is reproducing more A2s to keep the blood together.
Right.
So the A2 number, we're starting to discover that could be a sign that there is something else connected to your trait that could be giving you the anemia issues even more so, right? Because sickle cell trait and alpha thalassemia is not sickle cell disease, but sickle cell trait and beta thalassemia is a form of sickle cell disease. So you need to know what that A2 number is. And unfortunately, sometimes people get misdiagnosed. Again, if you're born at a certain year and your state wasn't doing newborn screening, then you haven't been screened at all.
Wow. Right.
Or the parent might have told you later on, oh yeah, you got the sickle cell trait, and if one ear out the other. So we recommend that go back and get retested and make sure that it's only sickle cell trait for one. And then that way you can start eliminating your, the process, and maybe you might have something else going on,
Right.
other than sickle cell trait.
Yeah, I mean, I'm speaking from experiences, and I'm also bringing it up because I don't know who else is listening to this and possibly experiencing certain symptoms that doctors can explain and say it's one thing and it's really not, like it's really not the case. Just think about, for me, just like it's a weird thing of experiencing, and it doesn't happen like often, but when it does happen, it's either very severe or it just knocks me out, right?
Yes.
Knocks me out, or this is something that I experienced and I can't explain that. I would tell it to my wife, but she doesn't know what it is. So it would just, at times, I get this hyper, very, very chill. Like my body goes into this very, I'm not hot, I'm not cold, but I'm sensitive to everything, right? But it happens like maybe once every 3 months. It happened once, maybe every 2 months at times. And I started to jot it down. The last time I experienced it was actually last year. And it's just so weird. And it can't explain anything. It only happens, it only lasts for about roughly, I would say 8 hours or so. Sometimes it lasts longer. The more I sleep, the easier it comes off. But the more I fight it, the longer it lasts. So I'm beginning to think that's probably the sickle cell trait, because it knocks me out. Like I get very, very cold, and then I'm still hot. I'm sensitive. My body's sensitive. Nothing can be touched. And just either my temperature will go really high, and I still feel like cold and hot at the same time.
Yeah. So I would definitely recommend that you just get retested again and look at your blood your numbers, and see what that A2 is. And like I said, there's also like I said, we inherit 23 chromosomes from each parent. So we inherit a lot of things that don't show up until later in age, things like that. But you definitely want to start ruling out that it's your trait. But if you're experiencing these kind of symptoms, then it's probably connected. I'm not a doctor, but
Right.
they're probably connected. And what the best, what we do, like I said, we can arm you with these questions. Dr. Maisha also is going to be doing consultations as well, because she speaks more of that medical. She's an MD. But yeah, we just want to make sure that our trait carriers know that there can be some risk factors other than just mating with another person.
Right, right. Even with that, I mean, if you can stress the importance of
before
before you
yeah.
decide to like have a family, the importance of like getting yourself checked and your partner checked out, where you won't put both of yourself, I'm sorry, your future kids at risk. Just asking the person, look, let's get tested just in case we don't either could avoid it or just not even chance it at all. Like, this is not something that I want to have my kids to have. Like, if I have a trait and you have a trait, there's that 50-50 chance that one of our kids can have the full-blown disease. So is that something that we want to explore, or is that something we don't? So just stress the importance of just like getting yourself checked out and getting your partner checked out as well.
Oh, definitely. And as I became an advocate in 2010, late 2009, 2010, I started interviewing. That was my first, well, actually, I started doing a sports show, and that was helping me with my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I discovered that this sickle cell trait conversation was important, I started interviewing people in the sickle cell community. And because I knew that if you had the disease, then your parents were trait carriers.
Right.
So I connected myself to the sickle cell community, and that allowed me to reach out to the parents and the siblings, which when you talk to the parents, unfortunately, in some cases, you hear the regret, you hear the hurt from the parent that didn't know that they were trait carriers. They didn't know that their mate had an inherited gene, and maybe they would have done something differently. Like, you don't want to live with that, right? I mean, those are resentments and regrets, and surely then you have the child, and then the child grows up feeling like he or she is a burden on the family because you got to take me to the hospital, and I just ruined Christmas, or I ruined Thanksgiving. Right. So even before that, see, the newborn screening is important, right? It does what it does, but for me and my advocacy work, it's after the fact. Mm-hmm. Because by the time that they can go in through the umbilical cord and check do the DNA test that way, the baby's already in the womb.
Right.
So now you're told that your child's going to be born with sickle cell disease. So what do you want to do? You want to terminate the pregnancy, or you want to have a child that's going to have a disease with no cure? Right. Like, now you got to have that conversation.
Yep.
Right. So if we can have people understand this before you choose to have a child, it's up to them. My prevention conversation, and God just showed this to me just last week, because you can't, if we're born for a reason, then it's not my call to tell you what to do. I would never tell you to have a child, or don't have a child together.
Right.
But even as I told you, this language will be important on how I express these conversations. And I looked at prevention, and I looked up the definition again, and I saw another definition was arising. So I saw that if I could have these conversations with people beforehand, it will give them the information to have a choice.
Right.
Versus having to decide after the fact. Right. And people are gonna you love who you love who you love, and we're not saying don't have a child, but at least if you do decide to have a child, you have the information, the knowledge, the understanding, the resources. So if that child is born with the disease, you're prepared. You're not living in regret and resentment. And I think that is just as important for your mental as having that child with the disease, because now that whole family is impacted with mental and physical.
Right.
And so that's my view is to have this conversation before, and make the choice and be informed. And that's the best that I can do with my conversation.
Yes, I believe that too. I mean, before my wife and I got married, or have kids, um, we that was a conversation we had, and I told her that straight up before we even thought about that. I was like, well, this is I know I'm a carrier, and I know some of my siblings are carriers as well, and I know my mom is a carrier. I don't know
Mm.
about my father yet, but I know my mom is a carrier, so automatically I'm saying we probably got it from my mom because I don't know.
Yeah.
So we had that conversation to know what we had to do, and she got tested, and she was negative. Nothing came out. So I was a carrier, and I think my son right now is a carrier as well. So
Mm-hmm.
just thinking back on about some of the stuff that he exhibits, I was like, oh, that makes sense now, right? Because again, once you're educated in it, you can
Yeah.
recognize it, right?
Yeah.
You
That's the
see
whole point.
things like that's your son or your kids that's going through, and he was like, okay, that might be the reason why, because there's no reason why you should be doing this thing besides that, right? Because
Yeah.
you go to the doctor, they're gonna tell you something else, but it doesn't quite work that way. So like you said before, it's paying attention to your body. That's one thing I
Yes.
say. If you see something that's it doesn't quite work well, it doesn't make sense to you. I would say just jot it down. Like I was started to do, just jot it down to see how the frequency of it, the level of pain that you experience. Between 1 to 10, if it's 10 all the time, it's something that you're gonna have to get checked out. If it's something that happened, every month, every 2 months, every 2 weeks, or every time you decide to go up the stairs and you just, you're seeing dizzy spells or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
mark it down so you can know, okay, let me talk to my physician and see what do I need to do. Maybe I need to get tested, and then maybe you can better explain these things. But the best thing I would suggest is document it. If you
Yeah.
can, that's the best way to know if this is happening often and how often it's happening, so you can know that I need to seek help for this, because it's not something that should be, it's not quite normal. So you should just actually seek a specialist for that.
Definitely. Like I said, those you got to pay attention to those symptoms, and like I said, being able to rule that out. At least there's a starting point, right? When with these kind of complications, these experiences, you can at least start to rule out the trait.
Man, thank you so much. I've learned so much. Right now I have, just like you had that little light bulb on top of your head. It's like a waking moment. I was just like, oh my goodness. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So I mean,
Well,
I'm taking more consideration about my health right now. So I seen a doctor whenever something's going wrong. Right now I'm doing like back pains, and I have to see a specialist for that. So I'm,
mhm.
I'm being active about it. So I think I definitely need to get myself checked out, rechecked out, I guess.
What are the back pains?
Lower
Is
back
it
pain.
is it your LCs or is it? It's not kidneys pain, right?
It's not so much, no.
Okay.
No. Um, Not so much kidneys pain. I know kidney. I would get it if I can honestly say, because I like to run. Uh,
Yeah.
but if I run at a pace that I'm not pacing myself,
Uh huh.
I can feel that in my kidneys. I can feel like that pain on my side. I was like, okay, I need to like slow down and do a different pace. So I've definitely felt that one. Which
Yeah, and you don't want to wait. You don't want to wait till that becomes blood in the urine, because then that's a late, too
is too
late
late
of a
for that.
sign.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a.
too late.
But
So I mean, I try to.
sometimes it happens, but um, the rare kidney cancer they're starting to discover could be affected because of athletics as well. You want to just make sure that you just have your kidneys checked to make sure there's no scars or cancer cells,
Yeah,
tumors or anything on them.
I checked out. Nothing like that. Nothing like that was.
Yeah,
I think.
that's good.
I think there
Yeah,
was.
it's rare. It's rare, but it happens. And a lot of times, most families, because people are dying from it, because by the time they find it, it's like stage 3 or 4.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Wow.
So it's already taken its course.
Wow. Oh, this is awesome, man. Thank you so much. I just thank you so much, man. I think this was more for me than anybody else. I'm educated in it only because, again, I want to know some of the stuff that I might be going through that can easily explain it, but also just like seeking help, right? Seeking
Yeah.
help when there's something you feel like it's not odd, it's not correct, not okay. Just go out there and get yourself checked out. Just I have insurance. I'm paying for it. I say I want to take full advantage of it. And
Yeah. Oh, yes, definitely,
that's the idea.
definitely.
There's no reason why for me to be paying, premium coverage, and I'm not taking care of myself. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely, taking advantage of that. So I'll pay my co-insurance, and if I can pay my co-payments, I do that. That's minimum comparison to my health. So I'm taking care of it. But this conversation was definitely for me, I would say, and I pray that someone get something from this, because I know a lot of us are going through this and not know that you even have it, or if we have it, we don't know some of the symptoms. And that was me. I know only the surface of it,
Yeah.
what I was going through, where I can probably was experiencing a lot of stuff daily and not even realize it. So
Well, you have been a blessing to me, because you've just allowed me to realize that I can still share my conversation, even though I want to talk about fatherhood stuff. That and I saw it that way too. Like, when I introduce myself or when I meet people and I share what I'm up to, if they hear sickle cell trait, that person will want to talk to me. If they hear military, there might be somebody else that wants to talk to me about that. I don't have to force those conversations, but really, we're going to have a good time on that fatherhood conversation, because that is really important. But you just revealed to me that it's possible to have all of my conversations, and when those arise, I can be able to articulate and have these discussions. So you just helped me at another level of peace in my advocacy work, as I'm choosing what path to go now, on how I have my dialogues. It's whatever I need to talk about, where in whatever case I'm in. So I don't have to limit myself and be just a sickle cell trait advocate,
No.
but I care about fatherhood and I care about this. No, I have a voice, and I want people to understand that you have a voice in these aspects of your life. And a lot of times we think that, we don't connect to people, or I'm the only one suffering or dealing with things. Like, there is a community of people out there that can connect to you,
Right.
and relate to you.
Yep.
We use, and I stopped using understand, because when you try to understand somebody, you're just listening to what you hear and you throw away everything else that's being said.
Right.
But if you listen to relate, you can hear, oh, that's what that is. Well, that sounds like this, and that furthers the dialogue.
Right.
You don't have to be like, I understand what you're saying, so I don't want to talk to you. No, you have no idea how we're so connected as people.
Yes.
So I again, I appreciate you, because my intention was the father stuff, but you allowed me to see that this is still just as important. And I'm okay with, I can live that life and be comfortable, put on whatever hat I need to put on at whatever given time I need to show up.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said before,
So
this
that's
conversation
cool.
is definitely needed, for me. I know this is a dad podcast and this is a dad conversation, but this is needed as well. Like, this is just as important, because you're a dad and I'm a dad. This is, but we also going through that.
Right? Definitely. So in the fatherhood conversation, this is a conversation.
It is a conversation.
This is.
Yeah.
So let me tell you, I got the trait from my dad. And my dad, again, his nephew has the disease, and my dad's sisters has the traits. But when I started this work, my dad got tested at 60.
Wow.
Because I'm like, look, I know it's not my mom's side. It's obviously on your side. You need to go to the doctor, bro. I'm not gonna be advocating. I don't know where it came from, right? But he did, and got tested at 60.
Wow.
And so and my mom didn't know anything. Again, it was growing pains. So I was dying in that collapse, and my mom knew nothing. Like, I could have died, and nobody would have known it was trait related.
Wow. Yeah.
So my mom is like, she wants to take on that conversation for the parents who aren't aware. So it's a family conversation, because it's a different perspectives and different, points of view as a family.
Yeah.
But as men, we've got to be responsible.
I agree with that. And you know what? This is stigma of, and I've said it before in the podcast, where they say men don't like to talk. I don't think that's correct. I'm gonna, let me say that again. That's not just having a space of conversation, a space to open up and talk about these things. all of us will we have a story to tell, right? It's not just
Yeah,
about sports. It's not about women. It's not about.
exactly.
There's some real conversation out there that we need to like explore, especially as men, as fathers,
Exactly.
that is not
Exactly.
being talked about. Not because we don't want to, it's because we don't have maybe a platform or we don't have a group to just like express that, right? Because once we have that open platform, we expressive, right? We were talking.
Yes.
We're going to be as passionate about it as we all talk about anything else that has nothing to do with dad related. But those are the kind of topic that I want to dive in and dig in and educate others that may not know of what's going on, right? Because again, once you know, you cannot unknow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, once you know, he's like, ah.
Now it's up to you to make a difference. You know right from wrong, and I'm telling you this is wrong. Now you are educated in the wrong. Now you can do right. So you
Yeah,
can't undo that. So it's up to you to just once you know what to do, you can go on the right path. The thing is, I don't want someone to be uneducated about the things and just like be blind and just be dumbfounded about it. Just like, okay, look, I know the answer. I know what to look forward to. Maybe I don't have it. Maybe my son or daughter has it. Maybe my
right.
husband, maybe my wife have it, right? So now let's just like explore that and develop that to see how can we go about, understanding it more. Maybe a treatment. You can do a treatment plan or whatever it is that we can do just to better understand it. We can, dive into it. But to know it and not do anything about it, that's a false narrative. But I just want to educate others as much as I can, because again, I have a platform. This is a platform, and I want to use it not only to just talk about dad's journey. And the dad journey does not end or start with just like fatherhood. It doesn't.
Yeah,
It's not marriage. It's a range of things, and I want to
yeah.
be exploring that. And this is definitely a topic only because it hit home for me, and I have relatives that have that. So for those that are listening, for those that may think they do, or they have a family member that have that, get yourself checked out. Get yourself checked out. The worst thing that can happen is that you find out you do have it, and now you have a reason you have an explanation to what
Exactly.
you've been going through, right? The fatigue, what I'm saying, you can't do
The
certain
pains, the cramps,
the cramp,
muscle
everything.
cramps.
You have a name for that now. You
Yeah,
have a diagnosis, so to speak, for that. So now you can like say, okay, now let me avoid certain things. Let me hydrate myself. Let me
yeah.
do whatever I need to do to take care of myself. Because again, if you don't, it can lead to bigger and worse things down the line. So guys, I'm educating you right now. Farron is educating you right now, and I'm so glad that I have this conversation. I know it's about dad. I'm gonna tag team with you later on and talk about your dad journey. But today, this was for me. This was definitely for me.
And lastly, for those who are listening and you might not think it pertains to you, there's those other red blood cell conditions like C trait and thalassemia and beta thalassemia. They're all inherited the same way. So you could have children with with C trait, and your spouse or your mate has C trait. You can have a child with C trait disease.
Mm,
So it's the same conversation, just change the narrative, change the name from D trait. It's the same thing. You got to know your partners. It's no different than cystic fibrosis. You know what I'm
right.
saying? That you've got to know those genes, because if you have that gene and your mate has it, your child can be born with that disease.
Wow. Wow.
So they're all inherited, you know, and that's the important factor. So you might not have sickle cell trait, you might have C trait.
Right.
You need to know that there's risk factors with C trait, nosebleeds and passing out and all those, because each red blood cell has this risk factor, but
Yes.
they don't get addressed, you know. So by us sharing the trait opens up people to look in their own life. Well, hey, I got thalassemia. What does that do? Oh yeah, you definitely need to go check out because of what that does. So it opens the door for another dialogue, and that's great.
Absolutely,
That's
man.
that's health.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna just thank you first. I know I've been doing it a couple of times, but thank you so much, Farron, for what you're doing. This just dropping, just educating us. Like honestly, just educating myself. So I hope each and every
Appreciate
one
it.
of you guys like got something from this. If you have any questions or comment, I'm gonna leave this information on the contact list. If you have, just contact him, talk to him. He'll give you answers, or if not, he's gonna direct you where he can find those answers. But I want to
Definitely
thank you
arm you.
so much, man, so much for educating me, for just dropping mad dimes right now. Right. So thank you so much for all that. You are an amazing person. I am not done with you yet. We will.
No, we just getting started. We got too much in common.
We have your dad journey to explore. So we're gonna tag team another day to just like record another episode about that. But you got me hyped, man. You got me hyped.
Cool deal, man.
Education,
I'm blessed.
I love it. Learning something new, I love it. My brain is just like going. But yes, let me not hold you any longer. So I just want to thank my guest Farron for coming through, for educating us, for just like dropping so many dimes, so many drools for me, man.
God's work, man. It's God's work, man.
Thank you so much.
God's work.
I'm not going to keep you guys any longer. Thank you for joining me. This season 4 is going to be amazing. It's going to be, I'm enjoying it already. I enjoy it. So, again, guys, I'm not going to keep you guys any longer. I will see you guys in a few. Bye. For more Dear Dad podcasts, visit Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Make sure you check Dear Dad Podcast on your favorite Instagram social media platform at Dear Dad Podcast. Catch you later.